Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Your Way podcast. I am delighted to have Avril Brown on again today, third time lucky. I was just saying to Avril, I looked this morning about the last time that we spoke, and it was the start of the year, episode 40. And actually, this feels like a really lovely, almost midway through the year point to touch base again because we did talk about, what were our predictions for the year? It felt like there was a lot of energy, a lot of things going to be shifting. And a few weeks ago, Avril and I exchanged messages and we were trying to arrange a catch up. And I said, well, why don't we just do the catch up as the podcast episode? So that's what we're going to do today. I'm sure it'll be slightly less like catch uppy because we're aware that we've been recorded, but welcome to an organic, natural conversation between two humans. And hello, Avril, welcome.
Thank you. It's always so good to speak with you. And that's it. It's two humans having a conversation. I love it. It just takes all of the fakeness, all of the pressure, all of the the not humanness out of it. It's laid bare. Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd love to tell you that I went back and I listened to our last episode and did lots of preparation. I didn't do any of those things. But I do remember that at the start of the year, we talked about what we thought 2025 might bring. And I'm sure we haven't talked about it yet, but for me, I mean, we're recording this at the start of June. It's been a wild ride so far. I'm sure it has been for you as well. So, what's been going on, Avril?
Oh, it has been so wild. It's been such a learning curve for me as well. It's fascinating. I think the thing that I notice most is that I've seen a lot of old patterns coming up to be released. So
Mm,
life has thrown up a whole load of circumstances, but beyond the actual surface level circumstances, I can see that what it's trying to teach me, I can see the message behind it and can see where it's the old patterns that are there. And it's like, do you want to keep holding on to this pattern forever? Or are you ready to release it? Because it's going to keep coming back to you again and again and again until you let it go. And that I think has been my overriding theme for this year is so far is what do you want to carry on for the next half and for moving forward? And it's been so fascinating. The other big theme as well is like value, the value of ourselves, and my value, but also other people. I'm seeing the same theme with my clients, with my friends. It's like, how much do we actually value ourselves beyond the approval of others, beyond the work we do, beyond the recognition we get? How do we hold ourselves and value ourselves every single day? So those are the two big things. And of course, again, life circumstances have shown me them all the time. Everything from marriage to my parenting to my business to friendships. It's really fascinating how things have come up to be released, to be let go of, including friendships and stuff. And
yeah.
the important things that I'm holding on to moving forward because they no longer are there to keep an old pattern alive.
Yeah. And I really love what you said about that zooming out and seeing the pattern and seeing the bigger picture and being willing to zoom out and see the bigger picture and the bigger pattern. Um, and that curiosity as well. It was interesting and interesting. So it's been a theme for me as well around that next level of needing to prove, needing an external to feel validated internally. And I'm very good at being like, oh, I've moved through this stuff. I've done this work now. And I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and I woke up, and on the surface, life was perfect, right? Everything was great. There was nothing wrong. And I woke up and I just felt really grumpy. Like, it's the best way to describe it. I was just grumpy. I wasn't angry. I was just like agitated. I was agitated and I was grumpy, and there was nothing I could particularly pin it on. And whether we want to call it a download or a nudge or just my brain mulling things over, But about halfway through the day, this thought popped into my head. And the thought was, if 10 people had joined Time Alchemy this morning, would you feel different right now? Right? And I was like, oh, I would. Oh, I would. Now I have, so the mastermind that I'm in, we had a mastermind call that afternoon. So I sort of took it to the mastermind call that afternoon. But isn't it so interesting how, like, we can talk a good talk, or I can talk a good talk, but then we've got to get, and this is what I think for me this year is all about. It's shown us these things. So we have to get really radically honest with ourselves of, okay, well, I can go on social media and be like, why are you being your authentic self? And are you in alignment with your blah, 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 blah? But if I'm not embodying that, but it's so interesting how like these little things come through to then be looked at.
Louise, I literally had this last week, last Thursday. I had
this. It's a Thursday for me.
It was really freaky. I had been out to Toastmasters on a Thursday morning. I came home, I was buzzing. I loved I loved that group. I came home, I had a couple of calls with people who were considering my upcoming offer. And the vibe and the energy was not, I was struggling to maintain the energy because it was just a total downloaded offer. And I was trying to fit it into neat little bullet points. And I got into that real funky place. And I felt this like viscerally real almost sick in my stomach. And when I tried to trace it, like when I tried to go into the feeling and stuff, I could see it so clearly back to when I was in boarding school and I felt like a failure. But I was 30 odd years away from that experience. And yet this feeling was still there. And I could see how it was tied to this upcoming offer. And I knew that exact thing. If I'd had 10 people, if I'd had 5 people signing up that day to this offer, I wouldn't have felt like that. And I could see so clearly how I was still attaching my value to the outcome. And therefore, my internal sense of mood and self was attached to somebody else's, choices. And I was like, oh, bingo, Avril. This is where, and I've really seen how business is such a great portal for our personal growth. We can sign up for incredible programs and things to expand our personal growth. But if we actually sit in our everyday lives, it just whacks us all the time. It's like, here you go, kind of whack-a-mole with all these opportunities to see it so clearly. And like you said, you can go online. I can go online and I can talk about this stuff. And it's easy when everything's going well to talk about, feeling your own internal value and stuff. But when life doesn't go your way and it's hard, it's like, oh, how much do I actually feel that? And it's really uncomfortable to look at ourselves in that way.
Yeah, it is. But then when we're willing to, there's great lessons there. And I still know for myself, I don't necessarily want to call it a block, but there's more work to do, right? Because separately, what I've been spending the majority of my therapy sessions this year. So I do therapy every week. Is dissecting my dreams. My dreams have gone next level this year. And it's great, and the messages are great. Some nights I'm like, can we just sleep? Can we please just sleep? Because you've woken me up 4 times now, and the dream feels so powerful that I have to write it down, but I also want to be asleep. But it's something that my therapist has said a few times. He's like, it feels like there's a theme here. He's like, I think there was one a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, well, what is it within you that's maybe like a male thing or more of a masculine energy that's asking to be released or shifted? And I can't. So there's a block. There's a block to me seeing it. Right? I can feel there's something. I can't quite orient myself to what it is at the moment. But again, it's just that curiosity, and it's like, okay, well, maybe the dream will show me in a future dream, or maybe I just stay curious, or maybe life will show me. But I think you're right. When we when we move away from, or when, for me personally, I won't speak for you, but I think you're going to say, yes, I feel the same. But when I move away from seeing things as coincidence or chance or, oh, this thing happened, or there's that thing over there, or it's just a dream, it doesn't mean anything. And instead I get curious of like, well, what is this trying to show me? Even stuff out in the outside world of like, well, how is this mirroring back my internal experience? And how might I need to look at things differently? Because I tell you what, on the days where I am in my body, feeling joyful, feeling connected, it's like out of body experiences. The people I bump into who are normally a bit standoffish or a bit grumpy or don't normally say hello, they're stopping for chats. It's like we're best friends, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, what? Right? So, I don't know that there's a point with that, but it's just interesting, isn't it? When we really start to, like, I talk a lot about following where life is leading you or following where life is trying to lead you, but when we actually do it,
Honestly, I look back at my life and I think, especially because I think there have been times in the last 10, 11 years when I have tried to control. I've always, historically, I had a lot of control stuff, which obviously then led into an eating disorder. And that was like, that's control central. But in the last 10 years or so, since I healed from that, I was in my early healing journey and then moving through recovery, but became a mom, I can see where the control moved into different areas. So it was like trying to control parenting. I no longer had the control there. And then into my business. And now it's like asking me next level to step away from control and to just trust more where life leads. When I reflect on times in my life that I did that, everything just worked out magically. There was no forcing, there was no pushing, it just kind of worked out. Like I met my husband on the other side of the world. We were just both picking avocados. I could not have written that down in a manifestation journal the year before. I'm going to meet the man who, I'm going to marry on the other side of the world. He's going to live on he wasn't from Australia. I met him in Australia. So I couldn't have written that down in a manifestation journal and, tried to control the outcome. It kind of just happened when I followed the nudges and, to get the ticket to go to Australia to, do my backpacking round to end up on that farm. And I feel like there's been like lots of other little times. So when I look back on my life and see where I followed the nudges and life flowed beautifully, I'm just in awe. I'm take your foot off the control pedal, Avril, and just realize that actually, when you follow those nudges, life just works out so beautifully, exactly as it's meant to. And I don't need to human and control it all, white knuckle it all so much, because there is a magical, bigger plan available for me if I just, if I can just, not be so human about it all the times. And yet the human experience is what we're here for.
Yeah. And I think so, as someone else who also has a deep and long relationship with control and an eating disorder past, and quite a lot of the clients that I work with, even now, would call themselves control freaks. There is a real, like, I don't think we can blast past it. There is a real discomfort in surrendering control and the plans and the strategies and all of the rest of it. Because I remember, so I know that I'm kind of jumping around, but my first coach, who I still do stuff with now, years ago, probably about 2019, 2020, she said in one session one time, she was like, but you realize that there's basically nothing that you can control. There's like nothing that you can control. Can't speak this morning. And I remember, I can't think, I think I might have been like sort of slightly people pleasing and been like, And inside I was like, what? She's wrong. I can't. She's wrong. I can't. But we can't. We can't.
No. And that's why something like an eating disorder can be really hard to give up, because it's, for me, it's the anomaly with something like an eating disorder versus an addiction. And I'm not in any way comparing the hard of the recovery from either. But with an eating disorder, you have to give up control while also recovering with the substance that was your addiction.
Yeah,
So
you still
it's
have to eat.
you still have,
Yeah.
and it's just so you have to give up control, but you have to eat at the same time, and it's just such a thing about life as well. We have to give up control, but we also have to live in the life where we do have to make some plans, because if you don't make some plans, everything, yeah, you just end up with, well, you don't end up with no dinner, but you end up with nothing in the fridge, for example, because you haven't done any shopping. So you have, part of the human thing is that we have to find that harmony between both in a way that doesn't, because controlling is just what I've realized. When we do control, we just box ourselves. It gets a smaller and smaller and smaller box until we become like this little minute version of what's possible for us. And yeah, we're here for so much more, and at the same time we're still human.
Yeah. So speaking of little boxes, I don't think I think I was on the, when we spoke, I think I was broadly exploring, like, speaking more about a psychic, intuitive, witchy stuff. And even in my mind, the phrase witchy is still, like, for me, it's this all-encompassing, whatever your connection is to the other, right? So whether it's starseed, witch, light worker, but whatever it is, right? And so I think a big part of this year for me has been to, and again, I'm sure there'll be levels, but to allow myself to break out of that box of, Louise is very nice and she's very palatable and she's very caring and she likes to help people, and all of that stuff is true, right? But also, I'm a multifaceted human being that has lots of different aspects to her. And some of that is light, and some of that is also quite dark. It was something that came up for me recently. So on that mastermind call where I was talking about the inner and the outer and all the rest of it, I realized, and I said it out loud, and I don't know if I'd been consciously aware of it or not before, but it definitely brought it more to the light of, I am scared of myself. There was a part of me that was scared of myself. Like, I'm scared of this darkness. I'm scared of opening myself up more to the spirit world, because more and more I am being woken by my dreams. But sometimes when I'm woken by my dreams, I'm hearing noises in my room, or the doors rattling, or there is 100% presence sitting on my bed moving around. And I'm like, right. And then, and there's some incredible people in this group. But one of the things one of the ladies said that really helped was, well, often when we're meeting entities or we're having these experiences, what we're really doing is we're meeting these shadow parts of ourselves, or we're meeting these parts of ourselves that we have shamed or shunned or pushed down. And, like, I'm sure sometimes that's true and other times, who knows, right? But it was then this real invitation of, okay, well, what are the parts of myself that I'm still not allowing myself to see and not allowing myself to accept and integrate? Because I can't remember if we've talked about this or not. I think we have, but I did some light language stuff earlier in the year. And some people, they activate their light language and it's like, oh, blah, right? But it all sounds all really lovely. And I was like hissing and snarling and, like, I was like, oh, 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 that's in there. So I think there is, but there is then this incredible freedom that comes from breaking out of the box and allowing all of ourselves. And then for me, and we may talk about this a bit more, we might not, but it's then what that brings up and how other people then react that then allows me to deepen my work, so changing my stuff to really embracing the inner witch, which is what I did at the start of the year, was met with, I'm sure people said stuff behind my back, right? But to my face, was met with just positivity. Other people sharing their stories, other people coming forward, people been really excited, people been like, this is incredible, I'm so glad you're bringing this to the mainstream. And then that completely freaked out. Completely freaked out. You're going to burn down your business. This is dreadful. Like, what you're doing. Honestly, like, it bothered him so much. I had to unsubscribe him from my emails and block him on my social media. Because I was like, it's just like, I'm like, this is just too triggering for you. And I don't need it and you don't need it. And then I would say things like, we had this conversation one day where I talked about aliens, or we might call them star seeds, and that's it. Then at that point, I'm mentally ill and he's really concerned, and what have I listened to, and he's not been able to protect me. And so there's been this real deepening and expansion of me, rather than going back into that box, been like, no, actually, I'm not even saying that I'm right. I haven't got like definitive evidence to prove, but I'm going to start trusting. I'm going to start leading. I'm going to start paying attention. And then my birthday, he buys me Tibetan chimes, wind chimes for the garden, tarot, enchanted forest tarot cards, a clear, I'm trying to think what it is, a clear quartz crystal ball, an amethyst crystal ball, some love heart chakra aromatherapy oils.
Wow.
Of this like great evolution of, okay, do you know what? You've said that this is who you are, and I wasn't sure, but you've stuck with it. You don't appear mad. Open to debate. Maybe I should just love you for who you are. Here's some stuff to show you that I'm trying.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's so beautiful that he's made all this effort, because do you know how hard it is for somebody who isn't into that sort of stuff to either look it up on the internet or to go to a shop where it's just incense and, you know, all this, like, it's just like walking into the weirdest place on earth for for him. And how, I mean, what a beautiful sign of his love and devotion to actually be able to and willing to embrace all of that.
Yeah. But I would have missed out on all of that if I'd kept myself hidden and in the box. And I'm just going to show you this as well. I cried. So I was 40 in May. As you know, you sent me a message. And I actually wanted to spend the day with my family. I think that's quite a big shift.
Huge shift.
Right? Huge shift, because mum and dad had come to visit. So since we last spoke, mum and dad came here to visit. We had a really lovely weekend. And I share a birthday with my dad. So I wanted to see them. I wanted to see them on my birthday, and that felt lovely. And my sister's got me this book, Witchcraft, from the Library of Esoterica. Honestly, I opened it and I just burst into tears. I just burst into tears, because it was like, I've got to a place where I can be all of myself, even around my family. And I feel accepted. Honestly, I was so emotional. I was like, and I feel accepted. And for me, I think it's just been such an illuminating year of actually, when we do stand our ground and when we are like, no, this is me, and I am going to accept all my parts. And sometimes I'm going to doubt my parts, but then I'm going to accept my parts. The other people will be like, oh, okay, fine. I'm on board.
I think that's the thing. We often make it bigger in our own minds because it is quite big for us in our own minds. It is big because we're the one who has to, who has to step across the bridge, so to speak, into that new identity. But when we've done that and we're so firm and sure and certain of ourselves in that, even if we're not certain what it looks like, but we're certain that we're no longer willing to shut it down, then other people don't have that same resistance. They're just like, oh, okay. And I'm blown away every time I do that. And Andy, my husband, is just like, oh, okay. I'm like, but I was all ready for a big, some big debate and discussion. I was all psyched with evidence and research and stuff. And you're like, oh, okay. It's like, isn't there a part of you that wants someone, me to talk about it more or to share it more? But they often just fall into that acceptance, because I think it's because we've accepted it, then you just met with less resistance from anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was something that my therapist said actually. So I kind of talked to him about my birthday experience afterwards. And he was like, well, but I guess he said, if you're not there being defensive or trying to justify or trying to convince, he said, because you're just there like, this is who I am. I actually don't mind if you agree with it or not. Like, I'm okay. I'm okay, whatever you think, but this is who I am. He's like, then they're just like, oh, okay, this is who she is.
Because remember, most people are just, they're stuck in their own worlds, and
Mm,
they're, they're, as long as it doesn't really affect them, it doesn't really, it doesn't bother them so much, because they're so caught up in what they're doing on any given day and what's going on for them. And because that's the majority of people out there. So what you're doing, as long as you're okay with it, it's like, oh, okay, great, off you go, and I'll just go home and worry about my bills or my whatever it is, my car or my work, or whatever is consuming my mind on any given day. And then we can just get about our merry little way, or big way, whatever it is, getting bigger. And once you cross that bridge, and you will keep evolving and evolving, it's often never as big as your first big step of, okay, for you, I'm no longer going to be a lawyer. That's, once you make that first big
yeah.
shift, then inside of you, you can do anything. But I think other people are a bit more willing to go with the flow as well, because they're like, okay, well, look what she's already done. Like, what can be bigger and worse than that? Oh, she wants to be witch, grand, let's get her a cauldron.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear. So, two things keep popping into my head to say. Run with either thread or neither, whatever. But the first one is I don't know if we talked about this in January or not, but definitely one of the themes that I felt for this year was that we were going to have a lot of awakening of people, but also a lot of like revelations and things being brought to the surface. So that's one thing that I thought we could talk about. And then the other thing also was, if at all, because I know it has for me, and I'm just curious if it has for you as well, if and how the work that you do with clients and or the work that you want to do with clients has shifted this year.
So let's go with the second one. Massively, the work I do
Mm.
with clients has massively shifted. The clients I'm attracting have massively shifted. The clients I want to attract has massively shifted. Because I've changed. It's so fascinating when we evolve, when we change, and we up level. Then it makes sense that the clients we attract also up level. But I also have the work I've been doing, I've been way less focused on, not less focused on the nervous system, because I do think it's a really pivotal point to have as a foundation. However, I've definitely been working on that is the foundation. Now, where are we going from here? As opposed to, let's just focus on the nervous system and let's just be grounded in the nerve, and like everything around the nervous system and trauma, that has definitely shifted a lot for me. And I think I've definitely seen that in the result of the clients I've been attracting have been less desperate, or less at that real thing of, I'm just drowning in life. And now they are much more, I want to excel. I want to live this life like it is just a magical dream. And I want to bring the potency of who I am to this life, rather than I just want to move out of basic survival. So I've definitely, now I do find we still need the nervous system stuff, because you need to be able to have, in order to step into that next level, it needs to feel safe enough to do so. So the work has definitely moved from that focus of, let's get out of survival and let's just get to living our life, to let's absolutely rock this life and let's really step into leadership. Has been the big theme coming up for the work I've been doing, is like stepping into this, but self-leadership of, I am leading myself first, and that is what I'm showing. For my clients, even that's what they want to do. They want to be like self-led in whatever area in life, parenting, their business, their relationship, and really excel in that, so that that ripples on to their clients, to their children, to their partner or husband. And so there's definitely been a theme changing into that of like the magic, the self-leadership, the potency, and also just real sense of power and fire. There's definitely been more fire in my work. For me, what I've seen is I've really embraced, so astrologically, I'm on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. And
Right.
I had no problem all my life being the Libra, because I learned that the Scorpio bite when I was younger was not really attractive and didn't get very much approval, because, you know, it kind of bites. So I always went with the Libra, and that was the more harmonious, and you keep the peace and people pleaser, all that stuff. But what I've really been embracing is like that, my dragon energy, the Scorpion bit this year, not where I'm going around biting, like literally biting at people, but where I'm letting that fire, where I'm letting that fire out a bit more. And I'm noticing it's really activating the fire in the other woman that I work with, like even my friends, and it's bringing that out. And that is like tapping into a real passion that a lot of women have squashed down over the years. And it's, you know, it's bringing that fire alight. And so that's another thing that I'm really noticing in my work. So yeah, absolutely, my work has evolved, the people I'm attracting has evolved, and what I want to bring to the world has evolved, and it's changing at a rapid pace is the other thing I've really noticed. So what I was doing in January feels very different now, what I'm doing and launching, and I feel like by the end of the year it's going to massively change again.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I obviously wouldn't have used all the exact same words, but I mean, I could literally just respond to what you've just said with same. And certainly the thing for me, and this definitely came up around my birthday in May, so I'm a Taurus, around this grounded feeling and this sense of, and actually someone else pointed this out to me as well, which was really, really helpful, of you've now created this very strong grounding of your internal sense of safety. And you've got that safety anchored in, which is what has now allowed you to open up to, let's just call it the spiritual, right? Without it overwhelming you and discombobulating you and throwing you off course, because you've got that, I don't know what, but let's call it 3D stability. You've got that grounding in place. And actually, that's so important. It's exactly what you said. Like that nervous system trauma stuff is important as an anchor foundation, because it means that we can then go into the next thing without our system being overwhelmed, without going into a freeze, without all of the rest of it. But very much for myself, it's been that same shift of, you know, if you think about, I came into this work on the back of burnout. So much of my work has been people in burnout and then helping them to get out of burnout. And very much that shift for me has been, okay, you may have had burnout, but you've come through that now. You've realized that probably was less burnout and more like a great awakening or this great nudge that you needed because you actually weren't doing what you came here to do. And now you're ready for that next step of, okay, there is a bigger mission, there is a bigger purpose, there is a something within me that wants to come through. Yes, of course, the nervous system work's important. Yes, there might be some more trauma to work through, but that's no longer the focus because they've done that work. They've done the grounding in that work, and then now that's ready. You know, so I'm using the phrase conscious leaders. You know, and you talked about leadership to really, I guess, speak to and call in those people who are at that next level. Now, I exactly know what you mean, but I think it's really important as well to say, speaking to people at that next level it doesn't do anything. It's not to do anything negative to people who are in the burnout survival space, right? Because we all have our different places and our different journeys and the places that we go to. But one of the things that I think about, I will get my ruler out, is that as we do more of our work, so if we start here, so for me, if I start hearing burnout and I'm completely disconnected from myself, and I can't even do the very basic somatic exercises of, you know, tapping my body because it's too intense, right? That's where I was. So if I start here and then get to here, I'm best suited to help the people in this bracket, right? But then if I get to here, because I've done that nervous system work, I've moved through, I've opened up, I've peeled back more layers of my consciousness, I've explored, I've gone down all the rabbit holes, got my understanding of how the world really works. I'm thinking for myself. And then I now have this energy and capacity because I'm not so exhausted to go after my huge mission and make a difference and know that I am here at this point in time. And I know I've bet, well, I don't know, but I'm willing to bet that you feel exactly the same. It's no coincidence that we are here this point in time and have had the life experiences that we've had, because we are here to help people to elevate their consciousness and to do what they came here to do at a point in time where we're like, we are taking back the earth, right? And so then from here, and I'm not saying that the ruler ends here, and I'm not saying I'm right near the end of the ruler, but it's just a guide, right? Then from here, actually, I want to help people in this space. Because there's someone else that then is better suited, because I'm a long way away from the burnout now. You know, and I think that is just part of that natural evolution. You know, as we evolve, as we elevate our consciousness, we're like, well, yes, we can still do that work, but it's just not the best use of our, it's not the best use of it anymore. You know, it's like, so if I think back to law, as a trainee, I was very good at putting trial bundles together. That's basically all the documents that need to go in the court. And you'd put them all together and you'd have to check them all. And then you'd have to get all the fucking page numbers done. And you were lucky if something did it for you, man, or there was like a stamp you had to do each page. You could do it meticulously, and then you could send it down to printing. It got a bit better later on because then printing could do it and do the page numbers, but then you still had to check every page of the page numbers, right? So that's a skill that's really, really useful. It's important. It's an absolutely vital part of any case, because when you go into court, you don't want the judge being like, this bundle's a mess, I can't read any of the documents, right? But then you get to a certain point later on, and you're better placed to be advising the client or writing the witness statements or taking the witness statements, writing the witness statements. That tells you how it really goes down. Right? I said it, it's out there now. We will not be editing it out. And you know, and that's just the evolution of how it goes.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I don't feel as lit up by where I think when we move on, we're lit. Like, I need to be lit up by my work. I'm a generator. I need to, if I'm not lit up by my work, then what am I even doing? And it's got to the point where my husband will even say, if you're not enjoying it, what are you even doing it for? And I'm like, yeah, you're so right. But if I'm not lit up, I want to be doing the work I'm doing now, and I want to be on. I want to be even 6 months ahead doing the work that I'm going to be doing then. That's what excites me. That's what really lights me up. I don't feel, again, that I'm best serving people that I was serving 2-3 years ago now, because I don't feel that I can do that work with them that they need, but I don't feel that I'm bringing my best self to it, because it's not the work that lights me up right here, right now. And I think it's a two-way street when we're working closely with people. I think it's so important that we are being lit up by the work and the clients as well as them, because then we bring our best selves to them and they draw the best information, they draw the best stuff out of us to really support them on their journey. In human design, I'm also a quad right. So all my arrows are in a right direction, which means that the people I'm in connection with, they draw stuff out of me. So basically, if I'm in a room with like idiots, so to speak, this is just like terminology from human design, then I become like an idiot. If I'm in a room of people who are really high energy, then that draws a high energy out of me. If I'm in a room full of geniuses, they will draw information out of me, and I'll be like, where did that come from? Literally, where did that come from? I don't remember sitting down to book and finding that information. But it's so important for me to be lit up by the work I'm doing and by the people I'm working with, because that means that I can give like so much, meet them exactly where they're at, but also give so much of what I have inside of me to support them on their journey.
Yeah. And I think also when you meet people in that space, you're not then second guessing of like, oh, they're not going to get this bit, or this is going to go over their heads, or this is going to trigger them. It's not that we don't ever want to trigger our clients, or like this is going to be too much. It's like, no, they can have the spectrum of what's here. Yeah, I love that. Tell me as you come to the end, because I've seen a couple of posts on it, but I do try, I mean, honestly, I do still sometimes go down the rabbit hole of the doom scroll on social media, but I try not to. And actually, I have started reading in the evening. I feel very proud of myself, very virtuous. I can't say that it's necessarily going to last. I've read like 2.5 books in the last few weeks.
Awesome. What
Oh, I
kind of
know.
books? Novels or
Well, so
which kind?
I've reread because it's so dense and so hard, but so important to me. I've reread the book, the A Vision book, which is The Way of the Dream. I think I've shared that with you.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't imagine. Could you get hold of it?
I didn't get hold of it, but now you've reminded me. I'm going to put it down in my book again.
So I've reread that because it's so dense, right? It's so dense, it's so complicated. And like the short version is we get guided through our lives, through the dream, and that guidance actually comes from the star Sirius.
Mm.
If I was going to give you a spoiler alert, like, so it's very like cosmos based, but it's the way it's written because the guy is sharing so many of his dreams over the years, and there's lots of kind of mythological references, lots and lots and lots of ancient Egyptian stuff in there. But like the terminology is different because it's like ancient language. So anyway, so I read that for the second time. And then I also got a trilogy of 3 books written by a lady on LinkedIn. I mean, she's a lady in her own right. I just know her from LinkedIn. And she's written a trilogy of books. The first one is called Breaking Free, I think, which is like her memoir. The second one is called Wildflower, which I'm about 60 pages in. And that's basically all about accepting and loving our feminine sexual parts.
Mm.
And then the third book is something like, and they're all she talks about having it's coded, like the codes that come through for the different things, which for anyone who's interested and hasn't heard about what the codes are, people are like, oh, unleash your wealth codes, unleash your this, that, and the other. It's not like there's some magical number. Like your wealth code is just like, okay, well, so maybe I'm here to be disruptive. And so then your wealth code is like, express yourself as a disruptor. Because I think sometimes there can be this misnomer when you hear these like funky spiritual terms of like, it's going to be something magical,
Mm.
like collapsing timelines or quantum manifestation. It's like, no, it's all very straightforward. It's just they've got fancy terms. Um, and then the third book I can't think what that's called, but something about the soul and then connecting into the mission that you were born for, which is obviously really interesting for me for Wealthy Witches. But I'd done a post about it was some kind of like being connected to your sensuality pleasure thing post. And she'd commented underneath and said, oh, I talk about this in my second book of my trilogy. And speaking of following where life is leading you and following the nudges, my body was just like, you need to go and read those books.
Mm.
She's in Australia, actually.
Oh yeah.
So I'm reading the books and they're great. And there's obviously still a bit of a perfectionist in me because there's loads of typos in the books.
Awesome. That drives me bonkers. It's so silly. I don't like that part of me.
I
Talk
know.
about bringing shadows stuff. I don't like seeing people's, yeah, I even go through, Facebook posts and content and I see all of this stuff and I'm like, should be a comma there. And I don't mean to, I'm not meaning to be critical, but I'm just the part of me that in school learned that grammar so meticulously is like, there's no comma there. And I know that might be autocorrect, but actually it's spelled wrong. And please don't change the way I spell honor to it, leaving out the U in it, because that's not how I spell honor. It's so interesting. Yeah, so I hear you on that so much.
But it has made a massive difference. Like Nat went out on Saturday night to just went for a few drinks with a guy that lives in the village. And he went out at 7. So at 7, and I won't ever watch TV on my own. So 7, no TV, went upstairs. I can't even think what I listened to, but I listened to some like meditation activation thing. I read my book for an hour, then I listened to this like meditation activation thing, and then I went to bed. And honestly, I felt so virtuous, but I slept really well as well. It's like, look at me embodying what I talk about.
I know. We have those moments, and then you wake up the next morning for some reason you're grumpy, and you're like, it didn't work. It didn't work. I'm still human.
Still human. Yeah, so anyway, so what I was saying was, I haven't read loads of it, but you've got something new coming out. And I know we're like almost at time, but tell us and me a little bit about your new program. What I'd also love is the fact that you maybe have tried but are generally refusing to follow the like, this is how you should do a launch nonsense, right? So, floor is yours. What you got?
Okay, cool. So my upcoming offer is called The Rising, and it's for women who aren't really here to make sense. Is basically my thing. They are not really here to fit in. They're definitely not here to fit in a box, but they don't really make sense. They can't define themselves by 5 neat little bullet points, which is basically the whole thing of my offer. I haven't, I have tried to break it down into 5 neat little bullet points for who it's for, but really it's for the woman who is here to walk the talk, who's here to step into her self leadership, who knows she wants to lead her children, her clients, her relationship from the place of truth and living her values and her soul-led path, but she doesn't necessarily know how to do that, like how to, but it sounds great in here, she knows it in here, but she doesn't know how to actually do that and walk that path in her everyday life, taking actual steps in this human experience. And she's ready for that. She is so ready for that, and she is like, she knows her gifts, she's ready to be activated into bringing those gifts to life. And so that's who it's for. And she's going to deepen into self-trust, self-confidence, just really owning her truth and what she's here to do in the world. Now, that sounds like great, that's a little overview. Where I got stuck and why this launch is really different is I basically downloaded this launch. I was running a free program for a month. And like a week before I finished, there was no, I didn't have an agenda at the end of that to launch something. There was nothing like that. A week before I came to the end of that program, I got this was just pouring through me of what I wanted to bring out, because I didn't want to leave the people who didn't done that just in nothingness. And also it was like, this is what you want to bring out. And, you've seen women walking through this, stepping into who they want to become. But now it's like, when somebody knows who they want to become, how do they then bridge that gap between who they know they are and actually bringing that to fruition in the real life? So I had this week, and then it was like, okay, I'm going to launch it on Friday. I had no landing page. Tech is not my forte. I had no landing page. I had no sales, like all the blurbies, the stuff you're supposed to do. And it was in my head, like on Thursday, I need to do this. I happened to be doing a speech for Toastmasters on the Thursday, so that was taking my focus as well. So I messaged a friend who's helped me with landing pages and stuff before, and I said, any chance you can help me? Just pull up something quite basic. She's like, I'm really busy. I just can't, I don't have the space. And I'm like, well, darn this. Clearly the universe is telling me I need to just pull it up and bring it up really my way, which is the whole theme of like, I need to actually do this my way. And the universe is just showing me I can't do it the way it should be done. So I launched it with no landing page. I then over the weekend on the Saturday, because I take my Sundays offline, on the Saturday, I sorted my Stripe link and I sorted a very, very, very basic place that somebody can pay now.
Yeah.
And I basically took my Sunday offline like I did. And that was a week ago. So I've just done this week of, but I still noticed myself when it came back into the content, getting caught up in content during the week, early on last week, of I need to push this in my content. And then on Thursday, that was when I said on Thursday, I just felt so just so clunky about it. It didn't feel like it was flowing. It didn't feel like it was energized anymore.
Mm.
And I thought something's wrong. And I was pushing it. I was attracting people who needed me to prove my value because I was feeling like I needed to prove my value, improving the outcome, improving all of this and fitting it into neat little bullet points. So I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not enjoying it. Again, if I'm not being lit up by it, what am I doing it for? And so it's like, again, taking a step back, this constant thing of life showing me what I need to make the shifts in. And then, like over the weekend, I took this Sunday off again, which you never do in the week before you launch something. You never take a day off posting and content and all that stuff. You keep pushing and pushing. You're supposed to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So I took Sunday off, and today we had like 3/4 of the day at a family event, and I'm just not showing up because not showing up online. I mean, I was showing up at the family thing, but I was like, this has got to be done my way. And the people who are meant to be in it will be in it, and the people who aren't won't. And there is so much peace in coming to that place within yourself, even if it's not as successful by society standards. I need the success. I need to be attracting people who are attracted to this offer because it sings to them, rather than attracting because they feel it's proven its value. Because if they're coming in on the back of that and needing to see everything in it, then they're not going to get out of it what I'm going to bring into it, because they're going to be needing to see that throughout. And what I've really recognized is that if I don't show up as my truest self, I'm going to attract people who are wanting the fake me, because that's what they're seeing and that's what they're attracted to. And then I'm wondering why they aren't liking or approving of the real me, but they haven't seen that to start off with, if that makes sense. So that was me with the offer. It's like, if I'm not true to me, and if I'm not bringing what this offer is about to life and selling it, I would rather sell it and bring it forward and get no sales, but it to be true, than to bring it forward to attract the wrong person, to sell the wrong product, because that's essentially what it would be. It would be like trying to sell Coke in a Fanta can, and then they're disappointed by the Fanta because it was Coke inside. So and I think that's, for me, when I look at the whole year and when I look at my business, that's a really big step forward for me, is to actually be like, this needs to be done my way, and in a way that attracts the people who see that and who are wanting that.
Amazing. So this podcast is going to go live on I think the 12th of June is a Thursday. I feel like it's the 12th of June.
The 9th is a Monday. Yes, it is. The Thursday is the 12th.
So that's when this podcast is going to go live, and your program starts. Does it start on the 7th? Did I see it starts on the 7th?
It starts on the 9th, but I will still keep it open for a little bit afterwards.
That's what I was going to ask. So if people are listening to this and they're like, yes, Avril is my person, my body is saying, go and check this lady out, where can they find you? What's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, just on Avril Brown, and on Instagram. But the best way is to just send me a message, a DM. Send me a DM, and we will connect that way, just through Messenger. I mean, you can find me in Messenger going through obviously Facebook, but that is the best way, because I get back to my messages really, really quickly in general. However, not on a Sunday. New Zealand time. And that is the best way to jump in. But I will be still promoting it on my socials until I decide to close it, which will be probably quite gut-led.
Yeah. I think it has to be. I mean, I had a lady that was still thinking about Wealthy Witches, and when we were coming up to week 4, and I was like, really, you need to be in now, because like it's going to get harder and harder and harder. And then I can't even remember what the date was. Maybe it was the end of April, and it started on the 9th of April, I think. But it was towards the end of April, and it was like, it just one day hit me, and I just sent my assistant, because I also don't do tech. I sent my assistant a message, and I was like, can you change the sales page so it's waitlist for the next group? And I think you're right. I think you do get that feeling of like, Yeah, okay, we're done now. And what was also very, very interesting was I didn't necessarily understand this right at the start, but that group is exactly as it is for a reason,
Mm.
right? And they always are. They always are exactly as they are for a reason. And the people are in there for a reason, and they're in there together for a reason.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful when you realize that, because it allows you to let go of the control and to trust.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on. What a wonderful conversation. I will let you go to bed now.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's cool. I'm always yeah, when I've spoken with you, I'm always so like, oh, it's so wonderful to have people like you in my life, you know?
Yeah.
This is something I don't think we realize. But when we start to be true to us in all areas of life, we attract the women that we've been spending our whole life wishing we had in our world. And
Yeah.
it's just such a blessing. And I just love these conversations. So I really appreciate you.
My absolute pleasure. And I think this is why, and I guess, it's sort of a part of what you're doing with the rising. It's what I do with my work as well. It's also remembering or also creating these environments and these communities where people can come and be in safe community where they can be who they are. I had a lady on one of my calls last week and she started to say something. She was like, "Oh, you might think this is weird." And then she went, "Oh, you won't think it's weird." I'm like, "No, I don't think it's weird. Carry on." Right. And it's like there's nothing without that need to explain. And I think it's so important. And I think I said this in a post last week. Like, ideal best case scenario is we have that in friends and family. But also sometimes we don't, or we want something extra as well. And it's trusting and leaning into, like, there are communities, there are spaces out there where you can find the kind of people that you want to hang around with if you trust the nudges and follow where
Mm.
life is trying to lead you.
So much yes to that. It's if you follow the nudges, because that's the thing. People often are like asking the universe for a sign, and they're getting the sign, but they're not actually taking it because they
Yeah.
want, I always call it, they want a signier sign. They want it to be, a unicorn that whacks them in the face. It doesn't happen like that. There's signs are happening all the time, and they don't always look like white feathers and sparkles. Sometimes they look like an offer just popping up in front of your page. Sometimes they look
Yeah.
like a friend mentioning a book that they've read. It can be the most phenomenal places that they pop up, but we have to just listen. And that's why being in tune with our bodies is so important, because when you get that little flicker, you just follow it rather than being like, oh yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and there's lots of different iterations of this story, but it's like the guy who's drowning, and then someone comes by on a boat and offers them a life raft, and then someone comes by in a helicopter, and then a third person comes by, and he's like, "No, no, no, I'm waiting for a sign from God. I've asked God for help." And so he inevitably drowns and gets to
Mm.
the gates of heaven, and he's like, "God, I asked for help. Where were you?" And he's like, "I sent you a boat, a helicopter, and whatever the third thing is." He's like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's always there in front of us, and I think now more than ever the signs are everywhere. They literally
"Yeah,
are everywhere. We just have to be open to receiving them.
yeah, absolutely." Well, Avril, thank you so much. People reach out to Avril, go and check her out, send her a DM. And I will see you in a couple of weeks, probably for another guest interview, but to be confirmed. All right, thanks, Avril.
Thank you. See you.